Hello, Zelda Universe. Welcome back to another new interview. My name is Trainer Trevino, and I am joined by a special guest today. Hello. How are you?
I am doing. I'm alive. I'm here. I'm subsisting. It's been a heck of a year, but it's been a busy one. I'm very grateful for that, and I'm very glad that you could have me back, and that the fans want me back, and the fans and supporters. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Hey, great. And who are you again?
I, oh, I'm nobody. Don't worry about me. No. I'm Sean Chiplock. I'm a professional voice actor who's been living in California, working full time since 2012, 2013. I've been blessed to be a part of a lot of incredible projects, whether it's commercials, video games, anime, everything across the spectrum. And recently, a little project came out, some people might have heard of, called Hyrule Warriors, Age of Calamity. And I am very, very happy that I got to reprise all three of my roles from Breath of the Wild.
Sean, how does it feel to be back in Age of Calamity?
Oh, man. That is such a simple question, but such a difficult answer because there's a whole reach of questions that I get from that I've received across my career, like, if you could play as one of your characters, because I tend to voice characters that are in cutscenes but are not playable in any format. If you could have a game where you played as one of your characters, who would you want that to be? What kind of games do you play? Do you get nervous when you play games that you voiced in? And for the most part, a lot of the games that I played were stuff that I, either voiced in but only in cutscenes, or I wasn't a part of at all. So like, for example, I was really big on, God, I'm trying to remember. This has been such a whirlwind of a year. I'm trying to remember back during my stream days. Cold Steel was obviously a big one, but I voiced the lead character in that, so I can't use that as an example. Just basically a lot of the Nintendo games that I played, like Animal Crossing, like Smash Brothers, that kind of stuff that I'm into, I don't perform in, and so I don't really think about it. But Age of Calamity is like the coalescence of everything that I'm hype about. It's a Warriors game. It's a Muso hack and slash, which I've played the original Hyrule Warriors. I've played Dynasty Warriors. I don't know if Persona 5 Strikers is a Muso game. It kind of looks like it.
It kind of is, yeah.
Okay, so I'll probably end up playing that too. So I already knew that this was a genre that I was going to enjoy from the very beginning. It's tied into Breath of the Wild. I believe Nintendo has said that it's canon, so we already know that it's important to the storyline. And as someone who hasn't touched the original Breath of the Wild, I know, I'm sorry, I'll turn in my credit card later. I was like, oh, cool, this is my chance to actually, experience the world of Breath of the Wild, even if I don't have the time or the personal ability to go through the original game. And then, of course, there's the fact that I voiced people in it that used to just be cutscene characters, and now two of the three of them have their own play style. They're completely separate from one another, and according to what people have told me, I've obviously had experience it with myself, but I'm also repeating what others have said online, are two of the most broken characters in the game. Revali apparently cannot be hit unless you are actively trying to be hit, and Teba, I was confused at first because I'd heard this already, but I wasn't able to actually put into practice. But now I've learned Teba shreds through weak point gauges in bosses. If you can stasis an enemy while their weak point gauge is up, you can take it from full to zero, even on very hard. It is ridiculous how much damage output this guy does against both groups and single targets.
That is a huge feat. That's just incredible.
I'm all for it, man. I'm all for it.
Best birds, best fighters. Well, cool, man. All right, so let's go ahead and get into a bunch of our questions from all of the wonderful fans in the world.
Yes, please.
Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, cool. So our first question comes from Mr. Brandon Acosta.
What up? Yeah. That's Kingly Red.
That's Kingly Red. What was your experience like in terms of getting to play Revali again and learning you were going to be doing it? Is there any experience you gained since Breath of the Wild that you were able to bring back to the character this go around?
There actually is, but it's mostly centered around the DLC. Because I don't know if a lot of people know this, but the original Breath of the Wild, the main game recordings, and the DLC recordings for Breath of the Wild were done by different directors. My guess is because the director for the original Breath of the Wild, the main game, did end up voicing Sidon, and my guess is when they came to the DLC, they were like, okay, we should probably get a director who's not also acting in the game, because we don't want their acting choices as the character to influence the direction that they give to other actors. So I could be wrong, but that's my theory as to what happened. But what's important is that the direction for the DLC, I'm trying to figure out how to word this. I don't want people to take it farther than what I'm stating.
Sure.
There was slightly more comfort with leaning closer to the edge of extravagance. Just a little bit more high fantasy, just a little bit more I don't want to use the word anime, but there was clearly a little bit more lenience when it came to portraying this fantasy world and these fantasy characters. If you listen to the original Breath of the Wild, you can tell that a lot of my performance was very subdued, very neutral, very, very realistic. It wasn't pizzazz, very eccentric. But in the DLC, Revali is just he's that little bit more full of himself. He's that little bit more extravagant. And that was something that carried over into Age of Calamity. When I came in to record for Age of Calamity, I noticed, it's the same people, it's the same director. So it was good that I had this foundation. I'm glad that I already had that experience of working with that group of people, so that when we came in to record for Age of Calamity, I already knew what level we were starting on and what they were going to be looking for, and that gave me more freedom to play around rather than having to spend time figuring out, okay, what's their angle, what's their approach they're taking to this game. I already knew that, and I could just focus on bringing the character to life.
And obviously too, just like coming back to reprise the role is like, just like
for sure
thing.
I've told a lot of people about how much of a jackass Revali was to me the first time I recorded for him, how he literally drove me to tears. But by the end of Breath of the Wild, I had better understood the character, and I'd figured out what I was trying to do with him. So Age of Calamity was this beautiful coalescence of, I understand the character, I understand the direction that the team is going to go with him, I understand the world. I was no longer coming from this place of, I'm brand new to this and trying to figure things out as I go. It was, I know where I am, I know what my job is, I know what this character is like. Was just able to do, and I think it really shows in the game. Like I'm not one who often toots his own horn. I try to avoid being like a braggart in that sense, but everyone's performances in this game are so damn good, and I chalk it up, at least partially, to everyone not being unfamiliar with the world or their character. We understood what we were performing as, we understood what was going on to a better degree, and we could just have fun, and that fun shows.
I totally agree. It's a very action game, so everybody's having fun.
It's so good.
Cool. All right, so moving on, let's go ahead and get to our next question from Ariana Rosario. She asks, in terms of both your characters, you're stepping away from humans and playing completely other races. What's it like stepping into a humanoid bird, panicking about his feathers burning, my favorite line in the game, or a giant father-like tree comforting others with his branches?
So I am very much a method actor. I'm definitely someone who physicalizes when they're performing. Part of it is because, like, it's just fun for me to get into that headspace of the character and get to do things that character does, and have the excuse of, well, they're doing it on the screen. I figure if I do it, then I'll better be able to embody them. People who watched my Twitch streams of Ace Attorney know that I was all too happy to go up, point out whenever I went objection. So there's both a personal and a professional side to this. The professional side is, man, is it easy to do lip sync when your character has a beak instead of a human mouth. Because a lot of people don't know this, but in most cases, English dubs will try to be very strict with timing out the pacing of words to lip flaps. I have heard that Japanese tends to go for more of the delivery than just the sync specifically. So they're a little bit more lenient when it comes to the lip flaps in most cases. I'm not trying to be general here. But in my experience, English companies are very, very, very stringent about making sure that if the mouth is open, you're talking. If the mouth is closed, you're not talking. And if the mouth is open in a certain way, you are saying some vowel that looks like it would match that mouth shape. So I feel for Patricia, for Elizabeth Maxwell, for even Joe Hernandez to some extent playing Daruk, because Revali's beak had two states, open or closed. And even the Great Deku Tree, I think maybe his had a little bit more motion, but his mouth movements were so grandiose, so wide, so big, that it was very easy to tell what he was saying at any given point, and pacing out the lines was equally as easy. So on the professional side, man, I am so glad I had those characters. On the personal side, I have brought this up a couple of times, but being a method actor, it is very fun to try and like physicalize how these characters would be standing, how they'd be moving. One major moment that I bring up a lot is the moment that clicked for me when I finally felt like I understood the character was we were doing the mission progress reminders in Vom Meadow. Like every time Link accomplishes one of the mini tasks and Revali comments on how many more he has to do. That was after we'd come back from break, and I was trying really hard to get into this character's headspace. It's like, damn it, you stupid bird, let me in! Let me in! And I tried to imagine how Revali would be standing. And I tried to imagine he had like he's got that prim and proper stance. He's puffing his chest out because he's trying to still be haughty and like be holier than thou in comparison to Link. And I brought my arms back behind my back, and I crossed them over each other. I tried to bring them back with like the slow motion so that I could feel the weight of his wings, like all of those feathers lined along his arm, crossing over each other. And for some reason, some magical, mysterious reason, as I cross my arms over each other and I feel that weight of the feathers pressing up against each other, I clicked. And all of a sudden, I'm just in this character's stance. I'm in this character's body. And what came out of my mouth just worked. It fit the haughtiness of the character without being grandiose. It fit his impatience without being angry. And from that moment on, we started sailing through the rest of his lines because I was no longer confused. I was no longer trying to figure out how this character would speak. I was just there. It was just happening. And we didn't question it. We didn't like go, whoa, that was so good. That sounded, that was great. We just like, we have it. We've got it. Lock it in. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. So with the Deku Tree, it was a little bit faster, but Deku Tree, by then I was like, okay, so I just need to embody this character. So I kind of made sure to, it was this weird mix of relaxing myself, opening my throat, and just kind of standing there. I focused all of my energy on keeping my windpipe open and none of it on moving any other part of my body because Deku Tree is rigid. He's stuck in place. The only thing he has going for him is running his mouth because he's not doing any other kind of running. So I took that and I focused everything on keeping my trachea, my vocal cords nice and wide open and keeping a lot of air going in and out of my lungs. And I used that energy to pull from deep within my body to provide the very low, very slow tone.
Ooh.
So
that is amazing.
It's a lot easier to do when you don't have to focus on lip flaps, let me tell you.
Good point. All right, cool. Let's go ahead and move on to the next question. This is going to be a fun one. So this is from Tome Fared. They're asking, how do you interpret Vali's complex feelings about Link?
So I didn't understand Revali at all until the DLC. And then I understood everything. And I wish I had known what we learned from the DLC back when I was recording for the main game. And it is that Revali, honestly, is the most reasonable champion in terms of his response to Link. His reaction towards Link is justified. The other champions I see are just immediately, they're very supportive of Zelda. They're like, hey, I just want to protect you. I just want to protect the land of Hyrule. I want to protect my people against, Calamity Ganon. So if you say this guy is going to be our savior, cool, I'm behind it because the alternative is dying and I don't want to take that risk. Revali is the guy who sequestered himself onto a snowy mountaintop so he could practice a skill and didn't bother telling anyone, and I mean deliberately tried to hide from everyone until he had mastered the skill before he started showing it off. This is not someone who was like, I made another advancement to my skill. Come see what it does now. Come see what it does now. He didn't want anyone to see anything until he was certain that he would get it right. So for him to go through all of this work to master his ability to earn the respect of his people, and then have this kid in a blue tunic, I almost said green, I'm so sorry, Zelda fans, I've lost my cred card twice, to have this guy show up with nothing to prove how powerful he's supposed to be, and have the princess of the kingdom go, yeah, he's good. He's your superior now. That's frustrating. That's really frustrating for two reasons. One, all the work you've done was only good enough to make you someone's subordinate. And two, if that superior doesn't actually, like, pull their weight, y'all are dead. You're done. Like, that's it. That's the end of the kingdom. That's a really, really big amount of faith to put on a single character who hasn't proven themselves yet. So, back during the main game, I didn't know this, and I was like, wow, he is kind of a jerk. Like, why can't you be supportive of this person who's trying to help you? But after the DLC, I was like, oh, that's why, because he hasn't actually done anything yet. So, after that, it made so much sense. A lot of people have also brought up that it looks like Revali has reverse performance pressure, which is that he does his best work when other people are watching. And if he's by himself, that's when he flounders because he doesn't know if he's doing it correctly. He doesn't know if he's doing the right thing. And that's when he tends to make mistakes. And I can see that, to be honest. I think that's really ironic where Revali wanted to master it because he wanted people to always be impressed, because if they're impressed, then he's going to do well and people will be even more impressed. Whereas if they're not watching, he's going to screw up and then no one's going to want to watch him and he's going to keep screwing up. And there's just so many layers to that. So
there's so much to it.
I mean, case in point, when Revali's fighting Windblight Ganon by himself, he perishes. When he's fighting alongside Link and Teba, and I think whoever else shows up to help, they succeed. So there's some credence to that.
I just want to mention just really quickly in that moment, after you defeat the Windblight in Age of Calamity with Link, Teba, and everyone regrouping and everything. Revali's just like, we didn't need your help, but thanks, I guess.
Right. Right? I want to know what word Teba would have said if Urbosa hadn't cut him off. I really want to know.
It's like a wake-up call for Teba. It's like, oh, okay.
Imagine he goes back and they're like, we heard that you said you met Master Revali. Was it great? Was it amazing? And Teba's like, it was okay. He's just sitting there kind of whittling his bow going, I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, that sounds like what would happen. All right, let's go ahead and get the ball rolling more. Let's go ahead and get our next question from Positive League. What was the funniest mishap or mistake you did while recording these characters?
All right, so this is a really boring answer, but I know that there's actors who have a lot of fun mess-ups when it comes to their recording, and they laugh about it. But I am very, very work-focused. I get really paranoid at times about hey, you got cast for a reason. They're entrusting you to voice this character. They're paying you by the hour. And the big thing that I go for with clients is if you get the work done sooner than they expected, then they know that you're trustworthy and they're going to want to hire you again in the future. So because this is my main source of income, because this is literally how I pay my bills, how I buy my food, how I support my wife in her personal endeavors, I take it very seriously. And if I mess up, if I mess up a word or something like that, I'll finish the line, but then I'll just be focused on doing the take again and getting a take that works. Because in a medium like this, once they pick a take, whether they got the one they wanted or because they ran out of time and we have to move on, one of those is going to be in the game or the show permanently. And there's no way we can go back and change it. So for me, a lot of my humor comes from, like, if we're recording an anime and there's a funny, like, freeze frame that we stop on, or, like, if we want to come up with, like, a funny alt line that might be included in a gag blooper reel, we might do that. I'm much better with making comedic observations about things that have happened rather than the actual thing that happened itself. But when it comes to recording, I'm all business. I would rather laugh and joke and have fun with people after the fact, but when I'm in that booth, all that matters is getting the client what they want.
Fair. That is a fair assessment of that.
I know it's really boring, and I know that whoever asked the question is gonna be like, oh, I was hoping there was gonna be a funny story. But the funny stories come from when we all get to celebrate with the game after it's come out. That's just how it works for me.
We don't make mistakes in voice acting. It's all done the first try. We're professionals.
I mean, I've burped in the middle of a couple takes. You know, I've had water burps escape, and I've commented on that. But just in general, it's just one of those things where even if there was something funny that happened, my brain immediately erased it because it's like you need to focus on your work. So I'm sure something happened, and I just don't remember it because that's not what I focus on during the sessions.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's go ahead and get to our next question. Let's jump over to Real Snug Boy. How do you feel waking up every day knowing that you get to dub over a open or closed beak instead of a human mouth? LOL.
It's great. It's great. I touched on it before on that previous question, but the less I have to think about the technicalities of the performance, the more I can focus on the passion and the embodiment of the performance. So I'm telling you right now, part of why my performances sound so acceptable in Age of Calamity is because I didn't have to worry about the lip sync nearly as much as I imagine others did, and that let me just focus on having fun with the character.
Very fair. That's great.
I hope all my characters can be birds. I know there's a stereotype at this point, so let's just embrace it, man. Let's just go for it.
We found your typecast.
I will have it written in my contracts that if you book me for this character and they are not a bird, you must rewrite them to be a bird.
I like it. All right. From Moose Yip. Hi, Sean. Thank you very much for being part of Breath of the Wild and Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. My question, what do you enjoy most about Revali's personality? Thank you.
I honestly appreciate that he wants someone to show their stuff before he puts his faith in them. I honestly, genuinely appreciate that. I like that he commits himself to learning a skill so that he can help others, but he does it, he focuses on mastering it before he tries to show it off. I honestly love how much love he has for his race and his people. And when I say race, I mean Rito, of course. I love the love that he has for his hometown. You know, he kind of hints at it in the DLC of Breath of the Wild, but I also really enjoy what we see in the cutscenes in Age of Calamity, where it's like, this is my home. I'm not going to let anyone threaten it. That's so cool to me. I really appreciate that he cares that much. And I also, I touched on this at the very beginning of it, but I do like that if someone's going to come in and get appointed as his superior, that he's going to hold them accountable. He's not going to just grumble about it. He's not going to just accept it. He's going to be like, okay, well, if I'm going to be expected to help you out, I want you to pull your weight. And I think that's really important. You know, I know that it can be really easy to fall into a follower mentality of, okay, well, if it works, cool. If it doesn't, then I'm not the one responsible. There was someone who was supposed to lead me. But I like that Revali takes charge and says, no, this doesn't just affect me. This affects everyone that I'm trying to protect. So if I'm serving you, you'd better serve us. You know, you'd better do what you're supposed to be doing. So I respect that a lot.
Right on. Emil von Bartels is asking, FYI, Sean is the voice of Teba. We know that. How was it voicing as the Deku Tree, since he's so different from the other two Rito? And if it was possible, how do you think a playable Deku Tree would work in Age of Calamity?
Oh man, repeat that first half of the question for me.
How was it voicing as the Deku Tree, since he's so different from the other two Rito?
Okay. So I didn't have this epiphany until the other day. I mentioned it twice on stream, so I'm sorry for people who listen to this and like I've already heard him say this twice before. But you're around my age, I imagine, Trevino. Like
28, 27.
Okay, so you were there when they had display cases with Ocarina of Time at like Toys R Us at Best Buy, where like you could go up and play. and like
Yeah.
experience Kakariko Village and stuff like that. That was, in my understanding, the first ever appearance of the Great Deku Tree. And I remember, I have a vivid memory of going into one of the back aisles of Toys R Us, and while my parents were doing shopping and playing the first area of that, I remember getting to the Great Deku Tree before we left Toys R Us. I remember seeing him, and it hit me a couple days ago that he's only had one English voice in all the time that has passed, and it's me. Like, that's so surreal, man. There was a
One
point.
voice.
There was a point where my age was in the single digits, and I saw this character, and at least for now, I'm the only one that has voiced him in English. That's so weird. It's so cool. It's
surreal too. Like, as a reference, like, pick on Joe a little bit. Like, he was telling me last time I was talking with him that his favorite Zelda memory is like meeting the Gorons in Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
And he would never ever imagine voicing a Goron in his life.
Yeah.
So I can imagine how insane that feels for you guys.
The idea that there might be people who go back and play Ocarina of Time after like this day and age and like experience the Deku Tree, that they might hear his lines being said in my voice from Age of Calamity Breath of the Wild, I can't even begin to put into words how surreal that is. It's so cool. It's so cool.
It's a mind blown. Mind blown. It's great.
Oh.
And then in the follow-up was like, how do you think a playable Deku Tree would work in Age of Calamity?
Oh my god. Like, this man is so massive. He chonk, all right? Like,
chonk.
I think of, I'm almost positive his movement would be similar to, if not slower than Hestu. Like, I think Deku Tree's big thing, no pun intended, is that he is just a walking wall. You know, it takes you forever to get anywhere, but once you get there, God help anyone who happens to be in the way. So it's kind of similar. It'd be like a mix between the Great Fairies and Hestu, where Hestu had low mobility but pretty decent damage output, and Great Fairies were a walking hurt box. Like, everything hit them. There was no way to keep track of all the enemies on screen, but they also had wide-reaching attacks that swept the entire battlefield. Their combos could decimate health bars, even if it wasn't, you know, a weak point gauge attack. So I feel like Deku Trees would be... he'd almost kind of be like a zoner, where his roots would be able to reach really far. He could send out Koroks a long distance to kind of snipe enemies, and the whole goal is don't let anything get in close. Because if it gets in close, Great Deku Tree is so big that you're not going to be able to easily see where they are, and you're going to notice your health start to go down, and you're not going to know what's hitting you. So he's the wall. He would be the wall character where he can send roots down through the ground, attack from a distance. You know, he can do a huge sweep with his branches or create a huge gust of wind that blows enemies back. And his whole play style is don't ever let the enemy get close. Yeah. They shouldn't social distance the character. So
brilliant. I like that idea for a character like the Deku Tree. It could work. I'm pretty sure we already answered this just recently. The Sonic Ninja is asking, did you have any history with the Zelda games prior to your roles? And if so, did that really psych you up when you got them? I think we already know that answer.
Well, yes. Well, there actually is an answer to be given there, because there was the active period, then there was the inactive period, and then there's the peripheral period. Okay. So the active period was I played the original Legend of Zelda, I played Zelda 2, came very close to beating both of them, but didn't actually do it. I played and beat Ocarina of Time. I needed a guide for the water temple. Don't worry, I'm one of you guys. I'm your average person. I needed a guide. I played Link's Awakening. I played Link's Awakening again. I played Link's Awakening a third time. I 100%ed Link's Awakening. I played Link's Awakening a fifth time. I played Link's Awakening and got stuck on a room and asked for help from the general manager of an Art Van furniture store, who called his daughter, who was in college, because he thought she'd have more knowledge about the game than I did. I got past this room and beat it a sixth time. Anyway, so I played Majora's Mask. I beat that. I dabbled on Age of Seasons, Oracle of Ages, Oracle of Seasons. I didn't finish either of them because that was around the time that my career was starting to pick up. So that's when a whole bunch of games went into the backlog. I got Twilight Princess and was enjoying it despite the motion controls, but that's kind of when things fell off. Around Twilight Princess, just between college and other things, my focus went elsewhere. I ended up dropping the game, and I missed out on Skyward Sword. I missed out on Link's crossbow training. I know, I'm sorry. I know, I can't be a true Zelda fan anymore. You know, I touched Wind Waker for a bit, but I didn't finish that. And things just kind of fell off until around when Breath of the Wild came out. Now, as someone, I realized that maybe I should have had more experience going into Breath of the Wild, but, you know, I also was very, very aware of the culture behind the CDI games. So I was more cognizant than any other person about how heavily this game was going to get scrutinized because it had English voice acting. People have asked, like, how excited were you when you first got cast as Revali? And my response was, I was mortified. I was terrified. I was like, okay, buddy, either you're going to do a passable job, or you're going to remind people why this franchise wasn't supposed to have voice acting, and that's going to be a permanent part of your legacy. No pressure. So I'm very, very glad that people responded so positively, let me tell you that.
Yeah.
So going into Breath of the Wild, you know, I did have this experience with the world of The Legend of Zelda, with Link's role in it. You know, I was familiar with the Rito as a result of playing stuff like Hyrule Warriors and understanding, because I think Hyrule Warriors came out before Breath of the Wild, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
2014.
Okay, so I already knew about, like, the Rito as they were represented in Wind Waker, and just from the times that I played Wind Waker as well.
Yeah.
So there was that familiarity. But my history was just, there was the active, there was the inactive when I focused on my career, and then I'm very glad that it could go back to being an active period, not only from me being a part of the franchise, but also it being games that I actively play.
Very well said. And thank goodness response has been positive over the charts with
what a relief.
And I speak for Age of Calamity as well, because boy howdy, again,
right,
brilliant job.
I'm telling you guys right now, you need to if you don't care to play it, you need to at least watch the scenes somewhere so you can listen to Patricia Somerset as Zelda and Amelia Gotham as Mipha. Oh my gosh. Oh my god. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, cool. All right, let's go and move on to our next question from Morgan Looney is asking, what's it like having a character you voiced who wasn't playable before become playable in a new game?
Oh, it was so good. Oh, it's so good. Like, I think it wasn't the first time that's happened, because obviously we have Rain Schwarzer from Cold Steel. We had Navarre from Shin Megami Tensei 4 Apocalypse, who actually was literally a character was not playable in the original game, became playable in the sequel. Because in the original game, Navarre was a human who was in a cutscene and he died off screen, and then in the following game, he actually becomes a party member. It's hard to describe, but there's a special kind of fun when there's a character that you previously only know through cutscenes, and you're like, man, I wish we got more time with him. And then they show up, and you're like, oh, you can bring them throughout this entire game. You can level them up. You can unlock their skills. You can hear their band. There's a certain level of, like, connection that you get to have with a character when you get to play as them versus when you're just an observer experiencing them during the time that they're allowed to exist. Giving players the option to play as this character and take them through what scenarios they want helps to, like, fuel the imagination. And I really, really am grateful for the fact, that not just Revali, but the other bird. I cannot tell you how many people were like, oh, there was no time for Teba. I wanted to get to know him. I feel like I barely understand him. He got so much screen time this time around.
He talked more.
He did. Dude, I was sitting here on the couch on stream during the scene when Revali and Teba are having a conversation with each other. And I had to see her going, those are both me. Those are both me. I am talking to myself, and it sounds like two different characters. What the hell?
I have to go watch that reaction, like just like seeing everyone react to their character. That's just great. That's awesome. Okay, Liz is asking personal favorite line of Revali.
It's the one where Revali is like questioning Link's ability as a knight, and the egg kind of gets you already know, and he goes, what? Ridiculous, every last one of you. There is so many ways that like the voice could have cracked on the what, or it could have sounded like an overextended anime gasp or something like that, and yet it sounds so perfect. It's just the right amount of disbelief. It's just the right length to where the what, like, it makes sense. It just works. And I'm so glad, because it could have sounded so cheesy, so bad, but it doesn't, and I'm so grateful for that. And there's just no other line that compares to it. However, if you remember the scene where the egg is bugging him enough and he just decides to leave and he flaps off, and right before he leaves, he goes, "How asinine."
He said that thing.
When I saw that line, I looked up from my script and I looked into what would have been the camera where the directors were watching me, and I went, was this actually in the script, or did you guys? And they didn't say anything except for, "We listen." Or they said we're listening. They said we're listening. So I still don't know. I don't know if that was originally written in or if that was a localized change. I just know that there were some feelers put out and there was understanding of what that line would do.
I'm just imagining the meme format of just like from The Simpsons, like say the thing, and Bart says the thing, and then everyone's like, "Yay!" But everyone just like looks at Revali. Revali, say the thing, and then Revali's like,
right,
asinine, and then everyone's
yay. Now I'm just imagining like it shows the front of a bus, and there's a silver Lionel like boarding the bus, and then in the back is the little kid going, "I'm in danger."
Yes.
And it's just baby side on. Oh, that's it. That's the meme. We need to make the meme image.
I'm gonna make the meme. I'll make the meme.
Someone's got to show the front of the bus and show just a gold Lionel coming on, and then show the back of the bus and have baby side on sitting in the bus seat going, "I'm in danger."
I love that. We're making memes here. We're making memes here. I love it. All right. Last question from our fans. Bechdeli Spontaneous is asking, "I'd love to know, what is your favorite scene to record and why?"
This is a really obscure scene to bring up, but
okay.
The one that sticks out in my head the most is where Revali is practicing his skill and he fails at it. Mm-hmm. And he's like in the snow, like, "No, I should have expected more of myself. This isn't how it's supposed to be," before getting caught off guard by Zelda. Just because in all of the pompousness, in all of the confidence, in all of the self-assurance that we see from this character, that's the one scene that we just see him not himself, where the facade is not there. The reality of all the work that went into creating Revali's Gale shows itself. And we don't really get anything like it before or after that scene. And that's kind of why it sticks out so much to me, is that one scene defines so much of why he acts the way he does. And it's like a treat that only we, the viewer, are aware of, because Link is not there. It's showing an ephemeral camera. It doesn't belong to anybody. And by the time when Zelda walks up, she only sees the aftermath. She only catches him at the tail end, and he instantly puts the facade back up and covers up. So that's something only we, as the player, know about, not these other characters.
I think that's really cool. Yeah. A last question from Katie James. "How was it voicing Revali, knowing you were going to voice someone kind of arrogant, and do you relate to him in any way? Revali is my favorite champion. I felt like he deserved better and has been one of my favorites to play as an Age of Calamity. Thanks, Sean."
Yeah. Well, regarding playing arrogant characters, I don't know if I should be worried about this, but I seem to have a lot of experience with playing pompous, self-absorbed, arrogant characters. Whether it's Zank from Fairy Fencer F or Subaru, to some extent. Subaru does tend to be like very self-confident to the point of thinking he can do more than he's capable of. So in that regard, it wasn't something I was unfamiliar with. I was like, okay, He's one of those guys. What caused the issue with figuring out how to voice him at first was that I had leaned for he's arrogant because he wants you to believe he's the best, when it was supposed to be he's arrogant because he worked hard to be the best and he doesn't want to be disrespected after all that work he's put in by someone who hasn't proven themselves yet. So once I flipped that switch, it was a lot easier to stay consistent. I relate to him in that it wraps back around to the whole how he didn't want to show anyone his Gale, his special ability until he'd master it. I am very hesitant about doing things that will be publicly seen before I feel like I can do the best job I can with it. Streaming is the big one. I was scared crapless about streaming because I didn't know the first thing about it. I didn't know how to get good quality running. I didn't know what my connection speed was going to be like. I didn't know how to have a decent layout. And I have constantly told people I owe so much of my streaming quality to Mike Feedback, Mike to Microphone, because he's a veteran streamer who I basically paid him a consultation fee, and he spent at least a couple afternoons, several hours at a time, just walking me through every basic and intermediate step of putting together a Twitch stream, putting together a layout, setting up a stream. I don't know what the term is, but basically the combination of everything, the banner, the background, the window screen, so that you have like your performance area that people are looking at. If it was not for him, I probably would still be streaming at like 240p because I'd have no idea why my stream frames were chugging. So that is where I identify with Revali, is if I'm going to do something, I want to do it right. I want to do it to a quality that people are going to appreciate, that's going to last at least a decent amount of time. I don't want to cut corners. So that's where I identify with Revali, and that's why it makes so much sense to me that he put all that work in and felt slighted by someone who came in and immediately got a higher position than him with no indication that they were going to actually pull off what they're being expected to pull off.
Well said. I like that answer. It's great. So that'll wrap up all of our questions for today. But Sean, where can they find you on the internet?
The two most common are Twitter and Twitch. Twitter for just my daily musings, my voiceover role announcements, which is twitter.com/sonicmega. And Twitch is where my streams happen. I stream 5 days a week, Thursdays through Mondays, with a whole variety of streams. We have community events, we have multiplayer Mondays, we have RPGs that I play. Of course, I think we're finishing Age of Calamity later today. I know that this interview is coming out later, but today, Sunday, December 6th, 2020, in the year of our Lord, Revali and Teba. But that is twitch.tv/sonicmega. And I always tell people, all that's important to me is your viewership. You don't have to sub, you don't have to donate, you don't have to give bits. I'm not doing this for the money. I'm doing this to share an experience, especially during a very, very trying and socially isolated time. And my thing I want more than anything else is to get partnership. Because I've got the metrics, I just need to keep them up, and that means way more to me, is not having to think about the numbers anymore versus making money through my streams. So
that's great. That's great. And you also have a server, right, in Discord?
Yes, I do. Yep. The Megastars Discord, which now has its own legacy link. If you type in discord.gg/Hazen, HASN, which is an inside joke on when I couldn't spell the word hasn't because the apostrophe kept becoming an enter. So it's discord.gg/Hazen, and that'll take you to the Megastars stream server. We've got a wonderful cast of people, very supportive, very understanding, very talented based on our live dub experiences.
Nice.
And we hope to see you there.
Great, man. Yeah, and we'll have all your links in the video description below and on screen maybe too. So yeah. Yeah. That's where y'all can find Sean. And Sean, thank you again for hanging out with us today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And of course, we're glad to hear you again in Age of Calamity.
Very cool.
We'll see you guys later. You have a good one.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.